Darian Lorne crouched beside a shallow pond in the hydroponics sector of the interspecies research vessel Thilaxa, holding a slab of translucent fish flesh between two wooden chopsticks. The fish had been grown in a sterile nutrient bath, genetically identical to the kind found in Earth's northern oceans. It glistened under the artificial lighting, pink and marbled, slightly chilled. Darian dipped it into a soy-based sauce, added a dab of wasabi, and raised it to his mouth. He chewed once, twice, and swallowed. A soft chitter echoed from behind him. Darian turned his head halfway and saw research observer Krrth, a tall blue-skinned Zorlani, standing rigidly by the entrance. Krrth's 6 limbs were drawn close to his torso in what Darian had learned was a posture of alarm. "You consumed it raw," Krrth said, his voice nearly a whisper. "Unprocessed. Unboiled. No cleansing flame. You were inviting parasites into your organs." Darian wiped his mouth with a napkin. "It's sushi," he said. "Totally safe. Farm-raised, clean environment, 0 parasites." Krrth's thin vertical pupils didn't blink. He stepped closer, his long toes curling with each step. "That is not security. That is blind faith in laboratory containment. Do you not understand the risks? I've eaten this stuff since I was 16, Darian said. "Never had a problem." Krrth tapped the side of his translator badge twice, as if certain it had malfunctioned. "You willingly ingest uncooked animal tissue. This is not risk tolerance. This is death flirtation." Darian laughed, but it quickly died in his throat when Krrth's gaze didn't waver. The Zorlani was dead serious. "I promise," Darian said. "It's completely normal back on Earth." Krrth turned and walked away without responding. Darian returned to his meal, but the enjoyment had thinned. 2 hours later, Darian was on the examination table in the med bay, blinking under the harsh lights while a small team of alien medics hovered around him. Apparently Krrth had filed an incident report. "I feel fine," Darian said, for the 3rd time. Chief Medical Analyst CERN, a broad-bodied Nalkari with a crusted exoshell, moved a scanning wand over Darian's abdomen. "Your internal systems currently exhibit no signs of parasitic invasion, but the latency period of many organisms is not immediate. I've eaten raw fish hundreds of times. We must consider the possibility that your species has developed a tolerance to certain pathogens," CERN interrupted, "but it is also possible your immune system is engaged in combat even now." "I'm fine," Darian muttered, "but lay back anyway." A thin sheet descended from the ceiling, displaying internal organ readouts in crisp detail. CERN tapped through the overlays with a claw, frowning. "No abnormalities," he said. "But we will monitor your blood chemistry for the next 24 hours. Krrth has filed a Category 2 containment concern. That requires full observation." "Because I ate lunch?" "Because you consumed an animal corpse without sterilization." Darian sighed. Later that day, he was barred from entering several shared labs. A red banner floated in his field of vision when he tried to pass the central corridor. "Pending clearance, biological containment review." His access was frozen. He paced outside the lab until Krrth appeared again, carrying a tablet covered in Zorlani script. "You reported me for eating a piece of fish," Darian said. Krrth didn't stop walking. "I reported you for violating pathogen safety protocol. It's not a violation if the food is safe. You consumed it raw. Your assurance of safety is not evidence." Darian matched Krrth's stride. "Why is this such a big deal to you?" Krrth stopped abruptly. His crest fins flared slightly, a sign of agitation. "There was a crew member on the Vasari mission," he said. "A Trelk. He consumed an unsterilized fruit from an unclassified world. Contained a larval microform. He died within 36 hours. "I'm not on an alien planet," Darian said. "This was Earth food. To us, your planet is alien." Darian opened his mouth to argue, but the words died there. Instead, he stepped back and nodded. That night, he sat alone in his quarters, now marked with a yellow warning banner visible to any passing crew. His stomach growled. He ignored it. The next morning, 2 Zorlani guards escorted him to the medbay again. CERN greeted him with a neutral expression. "We have noted a minor increase in eosinophil counts," CERN said. "Which means? Could indicate an immune response. Could also be unrelated. We will conduct a stool analysis." Darian groaned. "This is insane. We must eliminate all risks of transmission. You are in contact with multiple species. Cross-species infections are not well understood." He spent the next hour subjected to scans, samples, and one particularly undignified procedure that he refused to think about afterward. When he was released, he felt like a criminal. Back in the hydroponics dome, he sat on a bench and stared at the pond where he'd eaten the fish. A Nyari scientist named Velktu approached, its translucent skin shifting softly in the light. "You are the one who consumed raw tissue," Velktu said. "Yeah," Darian muttered. "That's me." Velktu settled beside him. "The others are disturbed. There are rumors you intentionally introduced a parasite to study its effects on yourself." "What? That's not true." Velktu's skin flushed green. "I know, but the others believe it. They say you were testing human immunity thresholds." "Why would I do that?" "Because you were human," Velktu said simply. Darian rubbed his face. "Does everyone think we're insane? You are unpredictable. You expose yourself to risk casually. It is difficult to interpret. Well, maybe we just have different tolerances, or different definitions of sanity." For the next 2 days, Darian was kept under observation. The med team found no parasites, no symptoms, no abnormalities beyond a slight increase in immune activity that eventually stabilized. But the damage was done. Word had spread throughout the vessel. He felt eyes on him wherever he went. Conversations paused when he entered rooms. Even the food dispensers now flagged his dietary selections for review. The final blow came when Captain Ralph summoned him to the command deck. "You are creating disruption," the captain said. "Several species are now hesitant to participate in joint meals. The Zorlani have requested a separate dining hall." Darian sat stiffly. "Because I ate a piece of raw fish." Ralph's eyes narrowed. "Because you did so knowing it would cause alarm. You must understand what is normal to you is disturbing to others. And you did not explain. You simply acted. I didn't think it would be that is the problem. You did not think beyond your own context." Darian swallowed and nodded. "You will submit a statement clarifying your actions," Ralph continued. "And until further notice, you are restricted from food preparation zones." "Understood." When Darian returned to his quarters, he sat for a long time at the edge of his bunk. The isolation was deeper than before. He realized, not for the first time, that being the only human on the Thilaxa came with more than just curiosity. It came with scrutiny. He tapped a note into his terminal addressed to the Cultural Liaison Office. Then he lay back and stared at the ceiling, the taste of soy sauce still lingering faintly in his mind. 3 days after the sushi incident, Darian found himself standing awkwardly in the corner of a xenobotanical greenhouse holding a sealed packet of sterilized nutrient paste labeled Species Neutral Meal Option C17. It was the only food he was now permitted to eat unsupervised. The paste had the consistency of wet drywall and smelled faintly of boiled mushrooms. Across the room, 2 Pharrellian engineers were rearranging a set of pollination drones. They kept glancing at him, clicking softly in a pattern he hadn't deciphered yet. He gave a small wave. They turned away. He sighed and sat on a low bench beside a tree with transparent leaves. The leaves twitched slightly whenever he exhaled near them. It was the only thing in the room that didn't seem to fear him. The doors slid open with a hiss and a tall, angular being stepped through, moving with smooth, deliberate precision. Its skin was a pale opalescent green, and it wore a sleeveless robe that shimmered faintly as it walked. "Human," it said, not unkindly. Darian looked up. "You've got me at a disadvantage. I am Hurltalk. I review cultural integration failures." "Fantastic. Another department I've disappointed." Hurltalk tilted its head. "You misunderstand. I am not here to reprimand you. That's new. I am here to ask a question." Darian gestured at the bench. "Be my guest." Hurltalk sat, folding its limbs with meticulous care. It produced a small recording device from a pouch and set it between them. Explain the purpose of willingly consuming biologically active tissue. Darian blinked. You mean eating raw fish? Yes. I wasn't trying to make a point. It's just how some people eat. For flavor, texture, it's a cuisine. There was no ritual, no symbolic meaning, no just lunch. Krill Talk pressed a button. The device emitted a single chime. Then why do others on your planet also engage in this practice? It's not some fringe habit. Millions of people eat it regularly. It's safe, yet it is unprocessed. Darian leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Look, we evolved in a world full of bacteria, parasites, toxins. Our bodies adapted. We've got layers of defense: stomach acid, immune cells, gut flora. We don't need everything incinerated before it's edible. Fascinating. The concept of internal microbial warfare as a standard biological function is uncommon among our consortium species. I figured. Krill Talk tapped its fingers lightly on the bench. Would you consent to a voluntary physiological stress test? Darian blinked. Why? To better understand how your immune system accommodates such hazards. You would be exposed to a controlled quantity of a low-virulence pathogen. Monitored extensively. No long-term effects. He narrowed his eyes. You mean you want to infect me? Not fully. Simulate exposure. It would be contained. You would be compensated. I'm not a lab rat. Of course. But consider the current perception of humans aboard this vessel is that of impulsive biological thrill seekers. This could shift that narrative. Darian didn't answer right away. He opened the food packet and took a bite. It was as bland as expected, but at least it was warm. When would this happen? He asked. Krill Talk's eyes narrowed slightly, a gesture Darian had learned meant approval. Tomorrow. If you agree. He nodded slowly. Fine. But if I end up puking for a week, I'm sending the bill to your department. That is acceptable. The next morning, Darian was led into a transparent chamber near the medical wing. 2 technicians in sealed suits stood behind the glass, while a third, a small, pink-furred Arcari, affixed sensors to his chest, wrists, and temples. Do not move once the dispersal begins, the Arcari said. Remain seated. You will feel a mild tingling in your sinuses. Possibly some sneezing. What exactly are you releasing in here? A modified analog of the Pharrelian bloom spore. In its native form, it causes mild hallucinations and temporary respiratory inflammation. This version is a knout, but still triggers immune recognition. Great. The chamber sealed with a soft click. A panel on the wall lit up, then released a faint vapor. It smelled vaguely of mint and ozone. Darian took a breath. Immediately, his nose itched. 10 minutes in, his eyes watered. He sneezed twice. His skin felt warm. He waved to the technicians, who nodded and made notes. Then the tingling faded. His temperature returned to normal. Half an hour later, he was leaning back against the chair, bored. Krill Talk entered the observation room and watched him through the glass. He is stable? Baseline immune response, one of the technicians said. No complications. T-cell activity elevated, but within expected parameters. Remarkable. Another hour passed. Darian had been given a puzzle cube to pass the time, which he solved and disassembled 3 times. Finally, the door hissed open again. You may exit, the Arcari said. Your results will be compiled and anonymized. Appreciate it, Darian muttered, stepping out and stretching. Krill Talk joined him in the decontamination corridor. You appear unharmed. Wasn't exactly a thrill ride. Still, your species' tolerance is impressive. Darian shrugged. We've had worse. Ever heard of salmonella? No, exactly. By the following cycle, word had spread that the human had voluntarily subjected himself to a pathogen exposure trial. The reaction was mixed. Some species viewed it as a gesture of transparency. Others thought it confirmed their fears. A few even approached Darian to request interviews or biological samples. He declined most of them. That evening, he was invited to a cultural exchange event in the communal atrium. He hesitated at first, but eventually went, hoping to reclaim some semblance of normality. The atrium was filled with soft ambient light and the scent of dozens of different atmospheres. Species clustered in groups, exchanging tokens, stories, and small bites of food sealed in biosafe containers. Darian wandered toward a table where a group of Melnari were offering a fermented root paste wrapped in leaves. "Would you like to sample?" one of them asked. He hesitated. "Is it raw?" They tilted their ice stalks in consideration. "It is not cooked, if that is your question, but it has been sealed in pressure chambers for 20 days. He took the leaf and examined it. It pulsed faintly against his fingers. "Why not?" He took a bite. The taste was sour and earthy, with a hint of something floral. "Not bad." The Melnari watched him closely. "You are unharmed?" "So far." One of them handed him a small data chip. "You may have this. It is a story about a Melnari who survived a parasite bloom by climbing inside a sulfur vent. Sounds like a page-turner. We give it to those we consider unusually resistant." He pocketed the chip. As the event wound down, he found himself in a quiet corner beside a tall, feathered being with a thin neck and golden eyes. It introduced itself as Lurith from the Vanari Confederacy. "You are the human," Lurith said. "Guilty. I have studied your species. You endured a global spread of viral infection without global governance. You developed vaccines in record time. Then you argued about them. Sounds about right. You make decisions that defy logic. Yet you survive. We're not always proud of that." Lurith's feathers fluffed slightly. "I find it admirable. We designed for perfection. You adapt through imperfection. You are chaos refined." Darian chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment." "You should." As he left the atrium, a message pinged across his communicator. It was brief. Medical clearance restored. All access reinstated. He exhaled. The next morning, he walked into the central commissary. Several heads turned. Whispers followed. He ignored them and went straight to the human food terminal. He keyed in a request. The dispenser produced a small container. Inside were 6 perfect, glistening pieces of raw salmon nigiri. He sat down at a table. Slowly, deliberately, he picked one up. Across the room, a dozen eyes watched. He took a bite, chewed, swallowed, and smiled. 3 days after the raw fish incident had been officially closed in the ship's logs, Darian found himself invited reluctantly. He suspected to the Intercultural Safety Symposium aboard the Thilaxa. It was being held in Observation Hall 3, a wide, temple-like chamber lined with transparent panels revealing the vast black canvas of space. Attendance was mandatory for all personnel who had caused cultural disturbance events in the last 2 cycles. As he stepped in, a few heads turned. A Frelixian blinked both sets of eyes at him, then shifted a few paces away. Darian sighed and took the only vacant seat left between a gelatinous Morvani, whose body shimmered faintly with bioluminescent pulses, and a squat, scale-plated Varnakian who regarded him like one might regard a ticking device of unknown origin. A chime sounded. The room quieted. Krill Talk stepped forward from the central dais, arms folded behind its back. Its robe today was matte black with a thread-thin line of blue spiraling from collar to hem. "This symposium," Krill began, "is not punitive. It is correctional. It is our opportunity to ensure that shared life aboard the Thilaxa does not fracture through misunderstanding." The Morvani beside Darian released a low, bubbling hum from somewhere within its translucent mass. Darian leaned slightly away. "Each of you will present a brief account," Krill continued, "of your actions, their motivations, and what you have learned. We begin with the Kthari incident." A tall, spindly creature with twitching antennae rose near the back. It launched into a spiraling explanation that involved a misinterpreted grooming ritual, a stolen grooming comb, and a confused attempt to show affection through what turned out to be a challenge display. Darian tried to follow, but the details unraveled somewhere around mandible extension etiquette. As the next cases were presented, an unauthorized barnacle-licking ceremony, a misused sleep pheromone, and an accidental insult delivered via body odor, Darian's gaze wandered. A few of the others were clearly just waiting for him to speak. When Krill finally called his name, the silence was heavy. He stood. I ate sushi, he said. It's a traditional dish from Earth. Raw fish, yes, but safe. Lab-grown. No parasites. I didn't think I needed to announce it like a threat. A few murmurs rustled through the audience. I didn't do it to challenge anyone's customs. I didn't realize how it would be perceived. I've learned that context matters more than I thought. And maybe more than it should. The Varnakian grunted. I also let the med team turn me into a science project for 3 days, Darian added. I'm still waiting for my dignity to regenerate. This time there was a spatter of laughter, uneven but genuine. Even the Morvani pulsed a warm green for a moment. Prill inclined its head. You may sit. After the presentations, the attendees were paired for a series of controlled intercultural engagements. Darian was assigned to KRRTH. Of course, they were directed into a side chamber furnished with 2 chairs and a neutral interaction module, which turned out to be a box containing laminated cards with questions printed in multiple scripts. KRRTH sat with legs folded in an elegant triangle. Darian slouched. KRRTH selected the first card. Describe a time you acted without considering others. Darian looked at him flatly. About a week ago. In the hydroponics dome. KRRTH's antennae twitched. Acceptable. Darian picked a card. What do you fear most in unfamiliar environments? KRRTH clicked softly. Organic contamination. Spore exposure. Sudden temperature loss. And unpredictable mammalian behavior. Nice to know I'm in the same category as mildew and vacuum breach. KRRTH selected another. What would you sacrifice to prevent injury to others? Darian didn't answer right away. Then he said, depends who the others are. But I've been trained to step in even if it's risky. Comes with the badge. KRRTH's thorax shifted slightly. You do not wear one. I meant metaphorically. There was a pause. Then KRRTH said, I have studied your immune system data. It is inefficient, yet strangely competent. Thanks. You expend vast energy producing redundant inflammatory responses. But you survive pathogens that would liquefy most species. Built tough, Darian said. Ugly, but durable. KRRTH looked at him for several seconds. I have revised my assessment. You are not reckless. You are simply calibrated differently. That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me this week. When the chamber door opened again, neither of them moved immediately. Later that cycle, Darian found himself back in the main commissary, this time seated at a long communal table. A few chairs remained empty around him, but not all. The Nyari scientist Velkta slid into a seat without hesitation, setting down a container of pink algae curls. Across from him, the Melnari who'd given him the parasite story chip arrived with a small bundle wrapped in waxy leaves. I brought something to share, the Melnari said. It's fermented. Not dangerous. Probably. Darian took the offered parcel and peeled it open. The smell was sharp, like pepper and citrus. He took a bite. It fizzed slightly on his tongue. Not bad, he said, chewing slowly. Velkta passed him a spoonful of its algae. I have questions about your cardiovascular response to capsaicin. You consumed something called ghost pepper sauce last week. There were no visible injuries. Why? Spice is flavor. Pain is optional. You willingly induce discomfort for gustatory pleasure? Yeah. And sometimes for fun. Velkta's bioluminescence blinked. You were even more confusing than I initially assessed. A moment later, KRRTH approached. He held a small tray with a tightly sealed container, which he set down at the edge of the table. I have brought an offering, he said. It is a sample of Zorlani nutrient gel. It is not raw. Darian opened the lid. The gel was blue and quivered when he poked it with a chopstick. Do I need to boil it first? KRRTH's antennae angled upward. That is a joke. Maybe. He took a bite. It was tangy, oddly floral, and left a fizzy sensation on his tongue. Not terrible, he said. What's it made of? Primarily calcified root proteins. and a secretion from the krell moth. Darian paused. You couldn't have led with that? It is entirely sterile. He took another bite anyway. By the end of the meal, the seats around him had filled. Conversation drifted from food to weather to propulsion systems. Someone asked him about Earth's tectonic plates. Another about how humans cope with atmospheric instability. He answered honestly and they listened. When he stood to leave, Velkta handed him a folded paper. This is a recipe. For algae noodles. It will not kill you. Appreciate that. Karardh gave a short nod. Your culinary habits remain illogical. But your resilience is not in question. I'll take it. Darian made his way back to his quarters. No warning banner hovered outside his door. No surveillance drones lingered in the corridor. Inside, he placed the recipe on his desk, alongside the Melnari story chip and a sealed pack of sterilized wasabi. Then he sat down, opened a fresh data file, and began typing. The title read, Human Culinary Practices. Risk, Reward, and the Unreasonable Joy of Flavor. He figured they'd either ban it or make it mandatory reading. Either way, he was done explaining himself. He'd already been understood.